Oh my, it looks like Despia finally is getting some spotlight for Genesys. You guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more content. We are going to be looking at your breakdown here for the Genesys Invitational out of the YCS in Brazil. Now, as you can see, this pie chart is very, very, very interesting because Vanquish Soul was your most represented deck. Does anybody else feel like that's become a pretty common occurrence at this point? Spoiler alert, it has actually been. Vanquish Soul has been doing very, very well, but it's not been like, you get like two of it in the top cut. You know, I have a feeling they are going to slap another point restrictor on this bad boy in the near future. Now, you also do still have Generator. Generator's been doing really broken things. Like, this deck is actually becoming a real problem. Does seem like Odeon has been performing very well. We also have Despia, which we'll talk about deck list here. We also have Exo Sister, which I'm actually kind of happy to see that. It's actually really cool. Genesys coming through, and we also had Anamana Matt. Now, we did talk about the price of Yu-Gi-Oh! Getting cheaper earlier today. As you know, you do see here with these initial price counts, $158, $190, $250, $140, you know, $71, $65, $95, and $206. I mean, your most expensive deck here is this Vanquish Soul variant with a difference of $100 in pricing between the two variants. That's a little bit crazy to be thinking about, that you're seeing that much of a key difference within pricing structure for this. But I mean, even if you get down here into this section, I mean, there are decks that are underneath $100. You don't have to think Genesys is a crazy expensive format, because the reality of the situation is it really isn't. I mean, it still has its ins and outs, but I mean, it's still going to be a expensive format to a degree. Now let's pass on over to those deck lists. Winning our event here was none other than good old Vanquish Soul, and I gotta tell you, man, you still get to see the Rescue Ace package splashing in here, because modern era Yu-Gi-Oh! Has dictated that having this draw package in Vanquish Soul is just incredibly good. You also do get to see, oh hey look, extracts are still the key source of this deck's power. You know, you're able to sacrifice, bits and pieces of your extra deck to get places. And I mean, like, even if you don't see things, I mean, like, you'll still be able to roll through, like, a Masquerade and, like, ruin your opponent's day. Like, it's still crazy to me. You can see that. Also, your side deck, you do have some strong point allocations down here to the Drolls. You've also got the Book of Eclipses. You know, you can use these power cards to help you out when those situations do rise that you need to have an answer filed away to get to those. So, not too bad. I mean, who needs Link Monsters when Vanquish Soul still functions as perfectly as intended? The 100 special. So we just put all of our points into the True King of all calamities, and we go to town. That is all Generator has been. Now, I do see that things are looking a little bit more challenging for us now. They've started building in the Radiant Typhoon monsters into this deck. So this is kind of where our problem has been with the Radiant Typhoon. This package just nets you a disgustingly large amount of advantage for no reason. And, I mean, the question becomes, should all of this be free? I mean, like, should this Mystical Space Typhoon stuff have a cost? Do we need to nip this in the butt because of this? And that's been, you know, a pretty big discussion. So we'll wait and see here. But if they do get to this, there really is not a lot of counterplay to this. I mean, I assume Chalice is a card that you could bring in if you really needed to deal with this. But there's a lot going on within the package of this deck. Next up here, we have another Vanquish Soul deck. Once again, I see, hello Impulse, hello Fire Attacker. How are you guys doing? You do see that this build did choose to actually play the Book of Eclipses to actually see some draw power, which is good. All right, this deck needs to be able to see that. I also do see we're side decking non-fusion area. We've actually reached a point right now that I guess we've got too many issues with fusion decks that we have to board in something like this. We are also playing the big C Gabunga in here too. Well, I mean, if you've got the ability to play it, you may as well. You can also see a lot of masquerade targets in here because, you know, we are relying on the pot of extra to allow our deck to be massively consistent. So, you know, both of your SK's builds, you can see, well, I mean, this extra deck is a very pricey difference. Next up here, we do have some Odeon for you. Now, yes, we are playing Planet Pathfinder in here. You know, if you have to dedicate a normal summon to this to get into, you know, your field spell and get things going, that's fine. You have the option to do that, and that's kind of what you're looking at here. Now, we are dedicating some points into the evenly matches just to be able to deploy this and make sure that we can get set up. Also, shout out to Jinzo Laird here. I didn't think I would see a rank 6 like this returning back to the course of things, but you know, we're in a different game right now when you're looking at Genesys. You know, utility options like this are now playable versus, you know, some other formats where it's going to be deemed considerably bad. And especially, you know, depending on the deck you find yourself against, this could be a pretty strong resource, actually. So good stuff. Next up here, we have Despia with the Goddess of the Third Eye. This is actually an incredibly interesting build. Yes, we are only playing one branded fusion. You can thank the massive point allocation that this card has locked on it. And I mean, you gotta think about it. I mean, you can't really blow through Mere Jades in this format. Like, branded is a very costly deck to approach and play. Though, like I said, I do like the fact we do have the Goddess of the Third Eye in here. Basically, if you are wanting to try to play something like this, Despia gets that opportunity to be playable. And also, I mean, you have all of the fusion tools that you're going to need to make a deck like this. Also, you know, Millennium Eyes Restrict being an actual physical option for this deck is very, very humorous. So, hey, take it where you can get it. I didn't think I would see Despia being playable at all, though. And then we do have some Exosister. Honestly, Exosister, you don't really have to pay anything to play this package. You know, the new Spirit stuff came in, and it has not really been an expensive deck. I mean, that means we can actually play hand traps in here. 45 points, you know, now we're at 60. You do toss 1 point down here into the Digusto Emerald, because, I mean, when this deck does get into the grind game, it does have issues. Nobody's going to say that, you know, it's a terrible side effect, but, I mean, you do want to play this when you are getting into the grindy situations. So, yeah, all of your points for this build are going into those hand traps because, straight truthfully and honestly, this deck has to be consistent. Also, shout out to the Macrocosmos here. I do think that this is probably one of the biggest ace up the sleeves that this deck can actually have, you know, helping itself out. So I like that a lot. And then we have Genesys actually sporting off triple copies of the new floor here. Actually, so this deck is basically acting as kind of like an anti-meta style deck. Now remember, Genesys itself, kind of a little pointy of a price, you know, here. But instead of, you know, playing multiple copies of this, we're just going into the side deck, and this is where you're seeing those point allocations come down very, very heavily. You know, you got the triple Solemn Judgment, you got the triple Evenly Matched here, and you're just like, all right, I can make this work. There's nothing too crazy about this, because, I mean, honestly, Genesys is the thing that does make this deck very consistent, but, I mean, we can just very easily go around this, because we do get to see the Replicard Lad doing its job. And then, of course, you're just playing a lot of break the opponent's board sort of cards with the Lava Golems and the Kumamungas. I mean, also this being a Fiend Monster does help out. And our last deck here is actually just Automata-Mat. Automata-Mat has still been one of the craziest decks. You know, Automata-Para is still 33 points, you know. You've also got the big rank up spell card here that does cost 1. You do have Chalices in here, but this deck, because 7 Tachyon is free, that's why we do get to see this deck coming off of the wall as one of those strong, annoying decks in the meta, because this card is still free, you know, and there's not really much we can do about that. Also, shout out to the Anti-Magic Arrows, the Number Protection. We've also got the Alimbertian down here in the side deck, as well. But there really isn't much else to say about this. But this is your breakdown for the Genesys Invitational. I'm really happy just to see. Honestly, it's a lot of what we see, but I do want to see how this format's going to shake up in the future with the next point allocations. Please leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.